Another speaker, we have Dr. Barnett from Warner Temple AME Zion Church is going to come and share some words with us. And then one more thing, I know people are concerned. Yes, you can take a duck from the table. Please feel free to take a duck or two to remind you of this experience you had today. Can you please clap for Dr. Barnes to come to the stage, please?
Good. Thank you. Good afternoon. I am at a disadvantage because I'm going to call him Kenneth because Kenny kind of messed me up as well as he messed many of you up. And I just want to say, I'm going to start with praying. So let's pray. Amen. All right, thank you. That helps me to get kind of calm. First of all, thanks to the members of the Summit Committee for allowing us to be here. Thank you for those who sponsored, the sponsors, and thank you for the founders. And have you not had a good time? Have you not had a great time? And this is actually, when you come to things like this, for me, it's almost like drinking out of a fire hydrant. You know, you just get, and you want to take it all in, but you realize that you can't take it all in. And so I want us to kind of do a gut check. I'll ask you to do a gut check when we're here. And my gut check is to remind us that there are two good things you need to know. Number one, the good thing is you were here, and then the good thing is you were here, okay? Good and bad things. And I want to just kind of talk to you a little bit about, I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, and every African-American male's story is not the same, okay? That's the first thing, listening to Kenny's story. I grew up in Rockville, Maryland. I knew my dad. My dad lived in the house with us. My mom and dad lived together. I was one of 8 children. I am one of 8 children. I'm the third oldest. My mom named the girls Erlyn and Eileen, and she named the boys Clarence, Clifford, Clinton, Clement, Carlton, and Clayton. As a matter of fact, my mama's name was like this: Clarence McKinley, Clifford Donald, Clinton Dallas, Clement Dallas, Carlton Daniel, and Clayton McKinney. So if I'm sitting in front of my dad, just like he and I are the only ones in the house, he'd go, Clinton, Clifford, Clinton, Clinton, boy! You know I'm talking to you. But I grew up in a neighborhood in Scotland where we grew up, and if you walk down the street, and I walked down the street 5 times, and on the 4th turn, I didn't speak to Mr. Matt, who was sitting on the porch. Mr. Matt would then call home or send a message to my dad and say, George, one of your boys came down here, and he didn't even part his lips. He didn't even speak to me. And then my dad would make all 6 of us line like little ducks, and we'd go down and we'd say, good afternoon, Mr. Matt. Good evening, Mr. Matt. But I grew up in a neighborhood where the neighborhood took care of you. Everybody watched out for each other. And so I want to just talk just for a few moments from the thought entitled, You're Enough. You're enough. You. With all of your weaknesses, with all of your frailties, with all of the things that you're afraid of, the things that scare you most, you are enough. You're enough. You're enough. You're enough. And I know when I come to these kind of things, boy, I'd love to stay. I'd love to just hang out with you guys all the time. I'd love to stay here and get ducks. Man, I'd love to just stay and connect and meet with people and just talk about things. And I'd love to just be, matter of fact, I'd like to maybe be a part on this staff. This is a nice little building. Maybe they could need a janitor or somebody to clean them. I'd love to stay. But would you look at your neighbor and say, but you got to go back? No, say it like you mean it. You got to go back. You've got to go back. You've got to go back to that job. You've got to go back to who sent you. You've got to go back. I know you'll hear negativity. I know you'll hear people who will doubt what you've done. I know you'll go back and some of those folks will say, what you heard is really not going to work. I don't know, all of that scientific stuff, that's not going to work. It's almost like Eeyore. Every time you come up with a great idea, Eeyore, I don't think it's going to work. And you'll run into those folks who are very negative. Don't look around, they may be sitting next to you, but you'll run into them. You'll go back to work and folks will say, it's not going to work. You'll go back to your jobs and folks will say, it's not going to work with that family. It's not going to work with that boy. It's not going to work with that girl. They're always the same. It's not going to work. They'll tell you, don't try it. They'll say, look, it's good in the laboratory. That's what folks do in Greensboro. That's what folks do in High Point. That's what folks do in Raleigh or Charlotte. It's not going to work. And I want to say to you, as was said earlier, we're people of hope. I'm a person of hope. I believe, I strongly believe deep down in my heart, deep down in everything that's about me, I believe that it does work. And I believe that God doesn't accidentally place us where we are. I don't believe that I'm accidentally placed on this stage, that God made a mistake. I don't believe that when my mama and daddy had me, that God said, oops. My daddy may have said that, but anyway, I don't believe that I'm a mistake. I kind of believe that this scripture says something about you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I believe that when my hands came out of my mother's womb, that God had a plan for me, that he said, I've got an assignment for you. I've got something that I want you to do. And I believe that you're here in this place at this time, in this moment of your life. And it's not an accident. And it's not that you've got the wrong family. It's not that they gave you the wrong file. It's not that you're working at the wrong school. It's not that you're employed by the wrong employer. I believe that it's destined, that we heard the things that we heard. We felt the stuff that we felt. We had Kenny talking. We've had all the other speakers speak only because there's something my grandmama says that I have to do what has been assigned my hands to do. And so I just want to stop long enough to tell you, as you look at your duck, look at your duck. I want to tell you, you and your duck, you're enough. Yeah. You're enough. Hear me? You're enough. You're enough. But I don't have the resources. You're enough. But I don't have the skills. You're enough. But you don't know the families that come in my way. You're enough. But you don't know the people that come to my door. You are enough. So there's a couple of things I want you to do to help yourself. Is number one, the first thing is I want you to make sure, and Mr. Kenny said it, he says, take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself. Number one is take care of you. You remember that illustration when you're on the airplane and the stewardess says, now if we happen to run out of oxygen, I always hate when they say that, but if we run out of oxygen and the tank comes down, they'll say to you, you put the tank on who first? You put it on you. And then they say if you're riding with children, you put it on the child. And I always say if I'm riding with children, I'm going to put it on me first. And then I'm going to put it on the one I like the best second. And then the one I like, that's what I'm going to do. That's the way I'm going to work it, okay? But no. Can I tell you, take care of yourself. Take care of you. I always look at it like this. It's God, family, and then it's church for me. It's God, family, city council. It's God, family, smart start board. It's God, family, whatever else I'm involved in. But I'm always going to look after me and my family. Anybody hear me? Because, see, I know too many workers that give and give and give and give and give to organizations, and their families are shocked. Their families are just dysfunctional, not because we're not taking care of what has been placed in our hands. Anybody hear what I'm saying? Hello? If you hear what I'm saying, just wave your duck at me. Wave your duck at me. Wave your duck at me just for a minute. Just wave your duck at me and say, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand that I've got to take care of me and take care of my family. You've got to do that, okay? Take care of yourself. Take time to take care of yourself. And then, secondly, I'd want to share with you that you've got to do what you can, okay? That's all. Do what you can. My grandmother was the one who taught me to do what had been assigned my hands to do. So what that meant to me is that Grandmama says, Cliff, you take care of the stuff that comes in your hands. You handle the things that you can do. Can I win them all? No. Will I make a difference in everybody's life? No. Ben always talks about the starfish. Will I be able to save every starfish? No. Will I be able to be effective in all of the lives that come across my path? No. But I will be able to save some. Hello? And so I want to challenge you to make sure that you, one, take care of yourself. I want to challenge you to make sure that, number two, that you do what you can. And see, the crazy thing about coming to things like this is that now that you know, you can't pretend you don't know. Now that you know, now that we've made connections, now that we've collaborated, now that we've listened to speakers from across this state and stuff, now that you know what you know, you can't pretend you don't know it. Now that you know what you know, we're all able to do a little better and do a little more. So I'm going to challenge each of us to, number one, to recognize that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Recognize that you're not an accident where you are. What? It's so crazy. Listen, I believe this, that the way God does stuff, it's so crazy that he'll even put people in your path that will intentionally be there to help you to do whatever it is has been assigned your hands. You may not always see it, but he does that. That's how awesome he is. So I want you to, number one, remember that. But also, number two, I want you to remember that you do the best you can with what you got. Oh, and then this third thing I just want to throw out with you is that I believe that there are times when the stuff in my hands is heavy. See, my grandmama used to say this statement, like something like this: the Lord will never put any more on you than you can bear. And Cameron, I believed that. And then all of a sudden I started saying, wait a minute. Because see, to be honest with you, there's some stuff that has been placed in my hand that's heavier than I can handle. I don't know about you. There's some families, there's some situations, there are some circumstances that seem to be a little difficult, more than I can handle. And so watch this. Do this with me for me, would you? Just hold your hand out for a second and just kind of shake it like this and put on in your hand, in your mind, all the stuff that you got to go through. You got it? Just put it in there. Just all the things that you've been dealing with. You know, the stuff that you thought about even while you were sitting here. The things that you were afraid when the phone beeped a little bit, you thought, oh my God, what is that? You know, and to be honest, listen, that stuff's heavy. And at times it seems heavier than I can bear. And so sometimes when I feel out it's heavy, I go like this, oh, ball your fist for me. Ball your fist, oh, it's too heavy, it's too heavy, it's too heavy. But then what I want you to do is I want you to take your left hand and just put it under that right fist, okay? And then I want you to lift it up. You see, that's the sign in sign language for the word help. And what I've learned, and it's just this crazy thing I learned, is that whenever there's too much in my hand, whenever I've learned that it's too heavy in my hand, whenever I've learned that it's got way more than I can handle, this is what God does. He somehow or another allows me to get some help. All right. And so the reason you gathered here and the reason we're collaborating is because you ought to be able to look at your neighbor and say, listen, when it gets heavy, I'll be able to. Make sense? When it gets heavy for you, I'll be able to. When it gets kind of tough, I'll be able to. When you seem like you can't get through, don't worry, I'll be able to just provide a little help. A little help. Because that's what I kind of believe, is that when it gets heavy and it gets tough, that God provides us with a little help. A little help. I remember one day I was cleaning my car. And I was cleaning the car not because I'm a clean freak, but I was cleaning my car because I was thinking about stuff. You ever been there? You know where you just like think about stuff and the stuff that you think about just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And so I'm out there cleaning the car and I'm thinking about stuff. And see, a lot of times I'll think about stuff that's going to happen in 25 or in 2029 or something like that. And I'm starting to panic and I'm thinking, well, God, what are you going to do? God, how is this going to happen? God, who? And I'm starting to fuss and kind of complain with God. And I'm saying, God, look, all this stuff I got to do and I'm worried about this and worried about that and just stressing all out. And I'm cleaning the car. And then God kind of says something crazy to me. Like, he says, hey, Dumbo, he called me by my first name. Hey, Dumbo, I've taken care of you before. I'll take care of you now. And I'm going, but God, but what about, and what about? And so I got out of the car and I was walking around in the back to put something in the trunk. And just as I walked around in the back, Judge Corbin, the Lord sent a wind. Just a cool breeze. And that cool breeze kind of said to me, God said, I got this. I got this. So sometimes when I get really stressed and stuff starts to kind of weigh me down, I can hear God just a cool breeze. I got this. Or I know you think you don't have enough, but he said, I got this. I know you think that maybe it's going to be harder when I get back, but he's saying, look, I got this. Call out that family that you think is too much for you. You got one? 1, 2, 3, call them out. Ready? 1, 2, 3, call them out. I got you. The stuff that you've been worried about all along, God says, I got you. And I want to remind you that you are enough. Don't let anybody fool you. Don't let any of that negativity come in your ear. You know, sometimes some people you work with, when you see their car, your blood pressure goes right up, right? You ever notice that? I mean, and then the crazy thing is, you see their car, you try to duck them, and they're standing right there in your cubicle. Yeah, right? But just know that when it gets tough, don't forget that God says you're good enough. You are. You're good enough. You're good enough. You're good enough. But I don't always make the right decision. You're good enough. But they just give me an extra load. You're good enough. You're resilient. You can handle it. Because not only will others help you, he'll help you. And not only will he help you, but he oftentimes sends a cool breeze that reminds me that I'm not in this thing by myself, okay? So I just thought I'd share with you that you are good enough. Good enough. Take care of yourselves, okay? Take care of yourselves, but know for a fact that I'm good enough. I would beg of you, if you've not seen the Resilience movie, to please hang around and see it. It is life-changing. It will remind you of self-care. But more importantly, it will remind us of some of the real issues that some of the kids and the families that we're working with are going through. Again, thank you for your time. And again, would you hit yourself on the chest and say, man, I'm good enough. I'm good enough. I'm good enough. Bless you.